You've written a number of books, and most recently, of course, Half Earth. And just the title raises a couple of questions. First, why do we need to set aside half of the Earth? And the subtitle of your book is Our Planet's Fight for Life. Now, I'm assuming that, a zillion years from now, there'll be some form of life here. But I got the impression going through your book that it won't take long for the forms of life that we recognize and relate to be in extreme trouble. But all right, I got to be honest. When I saw the title "Half Earth," we're going to set aside half the planet for biological diversity, I said, "What? Why? How do you get there?" It seems impossible at this point, and yet. I gather.
Yet it can be done.
How?
And I'm going to tell you. The half-Earth concept has spread like wildfire. When I was in Honolulu, just a little more than a week ago, I attended the East-West Sustainability Summit held jointly by China and the U.S., and then, more importantly, more directly relevant, although they were certainly relevant in addition, the quadrennial meeting of the IUCN, and to my astonishment, the book Half Earth was the principal talk of conversation. And I had a large number of people, but they included the heads of our conservation organizations, including the heads of IUCN, who came to me and said, we're going to make this half-Earth argument the lodestar of our conservation, biodiversity conservation movements. There was enthusiasm for it. Why was that? Well, I think and I won't spell out the details, but I can tell you, I think in the book anyway, I've identified how the pieces can be put together. I've even said what some of the major pieces are, and that can be put together with a minimum of disturbance of human occupation and settlement. It does not include necessarily at all moving people or even abrogating or challenging any property rights. But we can follow the model, actually not known by many, but it's very suggestive, that has been used by, for some years, by the National Park Service, U.S. National Park Service. And that's the National Natural Area designation. We have it right now, for example, in a 450,000 acre that I'm struggling with others to get turned into a national park. Hope that President Hillary Clinton will make a monument of that. And but in there, that has that particular area. It has the richest biota, among the richest biota of North America, the Mobile Tinsaw Delta. The area is right smack dab in that segment of the Gulf Coast inland that has the largest number of plant and animal species per unit area of any part in the United States or in North America. That hasn't been appreciated. There is no other park, never been a park, set aside along the entire Gulf Coast, from Florida to Texas. And so this is a logical place for biodiversity preservation. And we came close this time in the competition to have monuments made of all of the best places we could think of. And that got pretty high, we're pretty sure. And we hope that it'll go to monument status. But at any rate, this was an example of the kind of progress that's being made and is also a justification of another crusade I'm on now, which is to re-energize our mapping of the world's biodiversity.
Gee, we don't have, I guess, much time left, but talk to us about the power of corridors and why this is important in this effort.
That appears to be very much on the minds of those you in the wilderness area, and that's real smart. And I'll tell you why. Establishing corridors is probably the most efficient and cost-efficient way of holding on to biodiversity. Consider that you might have two medium-sized or smallish reserves. According to the principles proven of island biogeography, you've reduced the number of species that can hold on for a long period of time. You increase the extinction rate because of the smaller size. You are decreasing the immigration rate of new species because they're increasingly isolated where they are. Now, if you left them alone as small reserves, neighbors, but isolated, then you're going to see the number of species in them declining at a rate proportionate to their small size. The rate at which an isolated system like that loses a species is the reduction from the maximum number that it can hold, which is the fourth root, approximately, of the area. And that's a curve that goes like this. So if you can connect the two, even by a narrow corridor, allow species to go back and forth, then you're increasing the immigration rate of both. You're increasing a little bit the area, but most importantly, you're increasing that immigration rate. And in common sense terms, you're having species that go extinct in this island, isolated reserve, replaced by one that can move on over. So that's a very smart thing to do, and a good thing to push to the max in building, as part of a effort like that that is the goal of the Wilderness Society. And I think that the corridor movement is beginning to grow all around the world, actually, and certainly in this country. And I think most of you know about the Yukon to Yellowstone corridor. And what I would propose is that we square America. And I'll tell you, I haven't published this anywhere, but I've been trying it out. So you can give me a cat call or something if you don't like it. Okay, we go with Y2, Yukon to Yellowstone. We can do that. That's easy. But now we continue on down the Rocky Mountains. That can be done. And from the Rocky Mountains, we go to the Sky Island Mountains with similar middle elevation, temperate habitat, the Sky Islands of southern Arizona. And from that, we can, with a gap, go to the Sierra Madre Occidentale of Mexico. And that takes us in similar, at the right elevation, similar corridor that continues on down to the central Cordilleras of Central America. So, okay, but let's go back to America, North America. Now let's take a corridor through the Canadian coniferous forest, the taiga. That's easily done, and the Canadians would do it with a stroke of the pen. That's the lucky one. Let's come down on the east to the main wilderness area. And if you look at it, if you look at the map, you see by zigzagging through those two states and on down into upstate New York, we reach the Adirondacks, and then we can build the corridors, maybe a solid corridor, on down through the Appalachian to the last of the Appalachians, that's in northern Alabama. And now we come to the Gulf Corridor. And that's one I've been working on with an inspired local citizen businessman, M.C. Davis. He's a local good old boy who conceived it, and I was proud to work with him on the details and actually saw we were setting it in place. Unfortunately, MC died a couple of months ago, and we hope that nonetheless it won't stop the effort. This would go from northern Florida across the Panhandle, and we have a number of places identified in the Florida Panhandle where inland there's a lot of land that's not good for agriculture, can be sold cheap. And then you continue on across Eglin Air Force has a big reserve, on across the coast to Louisiana and beyond. And that completes the square. Florida, yes, let's do it. Okay, and I was surprised, and maybe, I don't know how many of you are aware, that for some time now, Florida has been rather quietly building a corridor, a real corridor, from the Everglades all the way through the central part of Florida, you know, zigzag, to the Okefenokee. Bless them, they've got this, and they knew what they were doing. Florida's had a relatively inspired conservation program for a long time.